the silent struggle. The night was quiet in Havana. The streets carried the hum of motorbikes and the laughter of children playing under the yellow streetlights. In a small home at the corner of an old neighborhood, a young girl named Anna sat by the window. Her eyes were fixed on the sky. She dreamed of a world she had never seen, a life far away from the walls that seemed to limit her. She was only a teenager, but her mind was restless. She wanted more than what life in Cuba could offer. The walls of her small home felt like a cage. She had no phone, no internet, no easy access to the films and stories that fueled her dreams. Still, she believed she was meant to act, to tell stories, to live inside characters that could inspire people. But behind her dream was a truth she rarely spoke about. She came from a family that had very little. Her parents struggled to make ends meet. Her father worked in a school, her mother in human resources. They gave what they could, but life was hard. Sometimes, Anna had to borrow clothes for school. Sometimes, she felt invisible. One evening, her father noticed her staring out the window again. "What are you thinking about?" he asked gently. She turned to him, her voice low. "I want to act, Papa. I want to be on a big screen one day." He sighed. He wanted to support her, but he knew how impossible it sounded. Cuba was far from Hollywood, yet he saw the fire in her eyes. Instead of stopping her, he gave her a quiet nod. "Then you must fight for it." That night, Anna could not sleep. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Fight for it. But how? The suspense builds. The next weeks were restless. She walked miles to attend small auditions in the city. Most times, she returned home rejected. "You're too young," they said. "You're not ready." Some didn't even let her finish her lines. Each rejection felt like a wound. But she did not stop. She remembered the faces of her parents, their sacrifices. She thought about how her mother skipped meals to save money for her schooling. She thought about her father's tired eyes. She wanted to give them a better life, to show them that their daughter's dream was not just a fantasy. Still, every night she sat at the window, staring at the stars, asking silently if they had a place for her. The moment of decision, one afternoon. At a small community center, Anna overheard a group of older students talking about the National Theater School in Havana. It was one of the only places that trained actors seriously in Cuba. They said the auditions were brutal. They said only a handful of students made it in each year. Anna listened quietly. Her heart pounded. This was it. This was her chance. "When?" she told her parents. Her mother looked worried. "Anna, it will be difficult. You will be competing against the best." But her father placed his hand on her shoulder. "Remember what I told you. Fight for it." She nodded, though inside she was trembling. The test of courage. The day of the audition arrived. Anna wore a simple dress. It wasn't new. It wasn't fancy. But she carried herself with quiet dignity. Inside the theater hall, dozens of students waited nervously. Some came with experience, some with connections. Anna had neither. All she had was her heart and her raw belief. When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage. The judges stared at her. One of them said coldly, "Begin." Anna took a deep breath. She began her piece. Her voice trembled at first, but as she spoke, something changed. The words came alive. Her eyes shone with emotion. She wasn't just reading lines, she was living them. For a moment, the room went silent. The judges leaned in. When she finished, there was no applause. Only silence. She walked off stage, unsure of what she had done. Had she failed? Had she embarrassed herself? That night, she sat again by her window waiting for news, her heart heavy with fear. The suspenseful ending of part 1 days later, a letter arrived at her home. Her hands shook as she opened it. Her parents stood behind her, anxious. She read the first line. Her heart stopped. She had been accepted. Her eyes filled with tears. She hugged her parents tightly. She didn't know what awaited her next, but she knew this was only the beginning. And so began the journey of a girl from a small Cuban neighborhood who dared to dream beyond the walls around her. Breaking the walls, the first day at the National Theater School felt like stepping into another world. Anna walked through the tall gates with a notebook in her hands and fear in her heart. The classrooms were filled with young people who looked more confident, more prepared, and more polished than her. Some of them had years of training. Some came from families who could afford private tutors. Anna had none of that. She sat quietly in the corner, trying to listen carefully to every word the teachers spoke. When it was her turn to perform, her nerves showed, her lines stumbled, her hands shook. The teacher gave her a cold stare and said, "You must learn discipline. Emotion is not enough." Those words stung. All her life she had believed that her heart was her power, but here it felt like her heart was not enough. Hidden struggles. Every morning, she woke up before dawn. She walked long distances to reach the school because she had no car, no easy ride. By the time she arrived, sweat already covered her face, yet she smiled, hiding her exhaustion. At night, she studied in dim light, her eyes heavy, her stomach sometimes empty. Her parents tried to support her, but their income was small. She often skipped meals but never missed her practice. Still, rejection followed her like a shadow. When auditions came for small student plays, she was often overlooked. Others got chosen because they were louder, bolder, or simply better connected. Anna smiled, congratulated them, and clapped politely. But when she returned home, she sat by her window again, tears running down her face. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I don't belong here." The spark of kindness one afternoon, after a particularly harsh class where she was told she lacked presence, Anna walked outside and sat on the school steps. She hid her face in her hands, not wanting anyone to see her cry. A fellow student, an older girl named Maria, noticed her. She sat beside Anna without saying a word. After a while, she offered a small sandwich wrapped in paper. "You need this more than I do," Maria said gently. Anna looked at her, surprised. She hadn't told anyone she was skipping meals, but Maria had noticed. It was a simple act of kindness, yet it lit a fire in Anna's heart. She realized that kindness was also part of acting, part of being human. Maria's gesture gave her strength to keep going. The test of resilience, months passed. Anna worked harder than anyone else. She memorized scripts late into the night. She stood before mirrors practicing emotions until her voice grew hoarse. She learned not only to use her heart, but also to control it, to channel it. Slowly, the teachers began to notice her. One day, during a rehearsal, she performed a monologue so raw and powerful that the entire room fell silent. Her teacher, who once doubted her, finally nodded with respect. But just as things began to shine, life struck again. The turning point. By the time she was 18, Anna realized that her dream could not end in Cuba. Opportunities were too few. Films were scarce, and she longed for more. She wanted to tell stories the world could see, not just the ones inside small theaters. But leaving Cuba was not simple. Traveling outside the country was restricted. She had no money, no passport freedom, no certainty of what would happen next. Yet, deep inside, she felt the same fire she had when she first auditioned for the theater school. One night, sitting again by her window, she whispered to the stars, "I will leave. I don't know how, but I will leave." Suspenseful ending of part 2 not long after, an unexpected chance arrived. A friend told her about an opportunity in Spain. The Spanish film industry was growing, and they were looking for fresh faces. Anna's heart raced. Spain was far away, and she had never traveled outside her country. It meant leaving her family, leaving everything she knew. Her parents listened quietly as she explained her decision. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "Anna, you are so young. The world is not always kind." Her father, though, placed his hand firmly on hers. "Go. Fight for it. We will always be with you." Anna packed a small bag with only a few clothes. She kissed her parents goodbye, holding back tears. She stepped out of the small house, the same one where she had dreamed under the stars so many nights. The streets of Havana were quiet, but inside her heart there was thunder. She was leaving Cuba. She didn't know if she would succeed. She didn't know if she would ever return. All she knew was that her story was just beginning. The unknown Landana's heart pounded as the airplane touched down in Madrid. She had never left Cuba before, never flown so far, never stepped into a world so different. The moment she walked into the airport, the noise, the faces, the languages, around her, it all felt overwhelming. She clutched her small bag tightly. It carried little more than clothes and hope. She had no family here, no friends, no safety net. All she had was the dream that had burned inside her since childhood. At night, when she reached her small rented room, she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. Loneliness weighed on her. The silence of Spain felt heavier than the noise of Havana. She whispered to herself, "I must not give up. I came too far to turn back." First steps, the next days were filled with challenges. She had to learn quickly how to move through the city, how to survive with limited money, how to understand a culture that was familiar yet strange. She began looking for auditions. Most doors closed before she could even finish her introduction. Casting directors often told her, "You are too new, too unknown." Some didn't even look at her twice. The rejection reminded her of Havana, but this time it was harder. At least back home, she had her parents' support. Here, she faced every no alone. There were nights she cried quietly, her face buried in her pillow. But every morning she woke up, washed her face, and started again. The first light one afternoon, after weeks of failed attempts, she walked into a small casting office for a Spanish TV series. She didn't expect much. The room was crowded with girls who looked more experienced, more polished. When her turn came, she stood before the casting team. Her voice trembled at first, but then, just like in Havana, she let her heart speak. She lived the lines. Her eyes carried a depth that came from real struggle, real hunger, real dreams. The room fell silent for a moment. One of the casting directors leaned forward and whispered, "Who is this girl?" Anna didn't know it yet, but that small audition would open a door she had been waiting for. The breakthrough. A week later, she received a call. She had been chosen for a role in a Spanish television series called El Internado. Her hands shook as she held the phone. She couldn't believe it. After all the tears, all the nights of doubt, someone had finally said yes. The first day on set was overwhelming. Cameras, lights, crews, everything was larger than life. She felt like an outsider among experienced actors, but she remembered her father's words, "Fight for it." So she poured herself into every scene. She gave more than the script asked for. She treated every moment like it was the only chance she would ever get. Slowly, people began to notice her. Audiences connected with her innocence, her sincerity, her raw emotions. The name Ana de Armas began to travel beyond the small TV screen. The price of growth, but success did not come without cost. Fame in Spain meant attention she was not ready for. Rumors, headlines, expectations. They all arrived too fast. She was still so young, still learning who she was. Sometimes when she returned home from set, she sat in the dark, staring at the mirror. She asked herself quietly, "Am I ready for this? Am I strong enough?" The doubt never fully left her. But alongside the doubt was something stronger, resilience. She had survived rejection in Havana, loneliness in Madrid, and she would survive this too. Suspenseful ending of part 3 years passed, and Anna's presence in Spanish television grew. She gained recognition, respect, and experience. Yet deep inside, she felt another pull. Spain had given her a voice, but she wanted the world to hear her story. She dreamed again, this time bigger than before. One evening, as she walked through the streets of Madrid, the city lights glowing around her, she paused. She looked up at the sky, just as she once did in Cuba, and she whispered, "Hollywood." The word felt impossible, almost like madness, but her heart pounded with the same fire she had carried since childhood. A new journey was calling her, one that would test her in ways she could not imagine. The wall of Hollywood, the airplane landed in Los Angeles. Anna stepped out with a suitcase. That felt too small for the weight of her dreams. She had left behind the comfort of Spain, the recognition she had earned, and the steady path she was building. Why? Because her heart told her there was something bigger waiting. The first thing she noticed in Los Angeles was how fast everything moved. Cars rushed, people hurried, and every face seemed to carry its own story. But behind the lights of Hollywood, there was a sharp truth. Thousands of dreamers came here, and only a few survived. Anna stood in the middle of it all, a young woman, with a soft accent, no strong English, and no connections. The language barrier her first challenge was simple yet brutal: English. She had learned only the basics in Cuba, and Spain had not required much more. Now, every audition script she picked up felt like climbing a mountain. Casting directors listened for just a few seconds before shaking their heads. "Her accent is too strong," some said. "She won't fit the role," others added. Anna left auditions with tears in her eyes. She walked the streets of Los Angeles feeling invisible. Once again, she thought, maybe I don't belong here. But then she remembered Havana. She remembered the theater school, the rejection, the hunger, the silence before the acceptance letter. She had been here before, in different forms, with different faces. She knew one truth: she had to fight, so she studied English every night. She watched films, repeated lines, practiced in front of the mirror until her throat hurt. Her neighbors sometimes heard her talking to herself, but she didn't care. She was preparing for the day someone would give her a chance. Loneliness in a crowded city, the hardest part was not just the rejection, it was the loneliness. In Spain, she had friends, fellow actors, a circle of people who knew her. In Los Angeles, she often sat in her small apartment, eating dinner alone. Her phone was quiet. Her heart longed for her parents back in Cuba, for the voices she grew up with, for the streets where children laughed even in poverty. Some nights she thought about giving up, about returning to Spain where people already respected her. But then, she looked at the stars outside her window. They were the same stars she used to watch in Havana. And she whispered the same words: fight for it. Small cracks of light slowly, things began to shift. After endless rejections, she landed a minor role in a small film. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't a lead role, but it was a start. On set, she worked quietly but with deep commitment. She listened carefully to the director, respected every crew member, and gave more than the script demanded. Some people noticed her humility, her discipline, her quiet fire. After that, other small roles followed. Nothing major, but enough to keep her afloat. She was no longer invisible. But Hollywood was not done testing her. Heartbreak and doubt in her. Mid-20s, Anna faced one of her lowest points. After a string of rejections for bigger roles, she sat in her apartment, surrounded by unopened audition scripts. She felt exhausted. "Maybe this dream is too big for me," she whispered. Her reflection in the mirror stared back at her. Tired eyes, but not broken. She remembered the girl in Havana who had borrowed clothes for school. The girl who stood, trembling at the theater audition, the girl who had crossed the ocean with nothing but hope. That girl would not quit. Anna wiped her tears and picked up the scripts again. She reminded herself that resilience was not about never falling. It was about rising each time. Suspenseful ending of part 4. And then, like a spark in the dark, a phone call came. Her agent's voice trembled with excitement. Anna, they want you for a role. It's not small. It's not background. It's a real role. In a Hollywood film. Anna froze. Her heart pounded. She could hardly breathe. After years of rejection, loneliness, and doubt, a door had finally opened. But little did she know, this role would not just change her career. It would change the way the world saw her. The rise and the reflection, Anna sat quietly in her apartment the night before filming began. She could not sleep. Her thoughts raced back to Cuba, to the little window where she once whispered her dreams to the stars. Now, those dreams were becoming real. But with reality came fear. What if she failed? What if Hollywood swallowed her whole? The next morning, when she stepped onto the set of her first big Hollywood film, the lights were brighter than she had ever seen. The cameras loomed like giants. Around her stood actors she had only watched on screen before. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Fight for it." The first breakthrough, her performance surprised many. Though her English was still accented, it gave her a unique charm. Directors noticed her ability to pour raw emotion into scenes, to make every moment feel alive. Audiences connected with her. Soon, more roles followed. She appeared in thrillers, dramas, and action films. Each time, she gave everything she had. She was not trying to be famous. She was trying to be true. The breakthrough came when she landed a role opposite some of Hollywood's biggest stars. Critics praised her talent. Interviews called her the fresh voice Hollywood needed. For the first time, Anna felt like she was not just chasing the dream, she was living it. The weight of fame, but fame came with shadows. Cameras followed her on the streets. Articles were written about her personal life more than her work. She often felt exposed, judged, misunderstood. There were moments when the pressure was too much. She sat alone in her home, asking herself, "Is this the life I wanted?" And then she remembered her father's words, "We will always be with you." She remembered her mother's tears when she left Cuba, Maria's kindness at the theater school, and the quiet strength she had, built from every rejection. Fame was heavy, but her humility kept her grounded. She treated every crew member with respect. She thanked even the smallest worker on set. She smiled at fans not as a star above them, but as someone who once sat by a window in Havana, dreaming just like them. The turning point of kindness one day. During a break on set, Anna noticed a young extra sitting alone. The girl looked nervous, almost invisible among the chaos of the crew. Anna remembered herself years ago in Havana, in Madrid, in Los Angeles. She walked over, sat beside the girl, and asked gently, "First time?" The girl nodded, surprised that Anna had spoken to her. Anna shared her own story, about being rejected, about crying in silence, about almost giving up. She told the girl, "Never let anyone make you feel small. You belong here if you believe you do." The young girl's eyes filled with tears. For her, that moment was unforgettable. For Anna, it was a reminder. Kindness mattered more than fame. The lesson of resilience. As the years passed, Anna became known not only for her beauty and talent, but for her resilience and humility. She played roles that touched hearts, roles that showed pain, love, strength, and vulnerability. But her real story, the one behind the cameras, was even more powerful. She had once been a girl who borrowed clothes to go to school. She had once been a teenager who cried after auditions. She had once been a young woman who sat alone in a foreign land, doubting herself. Yet, she never stopped fighting. The emotional ending one evening after the premiere of a film that made her a global name. Anna stood on the balcony of her home. The city lights of Los Angeles stretched out before her. She thought of her parents back in Cuba, of the friends who had helped her along the way, of the countless times she had almost quit. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of gratitude. She whispered into the night, "Thank you." Because she had learned that success was not about fame or fortune. It was about resilience, about kindness, about never letting go of the dream, even when the world said no. Final reflection, Ana de Armas's journey was not easy. It was filled with hunger, rejection, loneliness, and doubt. But she proved that dreams are stronger than obstacles. She showed that humility and kindness can shine brighter than fame. Her story reminds us that every struggle has meaning. Every fall can lead to rising, and every dream, no matter how impossible, can find its light if we fight for it. And so, the girl from a small home in Havana became a woman who inspired the world.